Welcome back to the channel. It's so great to have you here. So today we're moving on to the fourth installment. This is our Christmas star. I'm so happy you've decided to join me today. So let's get started. Well, hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we are moving on to the fourth installment for our Christmas sew along, and today's block, believe it or not, is called Christmas Star. So I hope you're excited, and we are getting closer to completing this Christmas quilt along, which is going to lead to a beautiful quilt. So we need to make two of these particular blocks. So I already have all of my squares cut out here, and we will be starting with half square triangles. Now you're going to pair your fabrics. Now before I start, let me just go through the colors. I have red and I have a yellow and white. This is not a Christmas color, but I'm using this as a sort of a goldish representation throughout the quilt. So that's where the yellow and white comes in, and I think it works really nicely with the red gold. So I think it plays really nicely as well. It's not too bright, but the contrast is there enough so that it shows off. And I'm using blue instead of green for that Christmas color, yet I wanted to bring in these cool tones throughout the Christmas block. As we know, there's blue in Christmas, whereby some people like those cool tones or those sort of sea vibes or coastal vibes into their sort of Christmas theme. But instead of using green, I thought I would use the blue, and I think it actually works. Plus I have this particular blue already from my fat quarters within the blocks that we made previously. So I'm going to take some of my red squares and I'm going to pair them with my yellow and white squares as well, and we're going to go ahead and make half square triangles with these four, and we make half square triangles as we would normally. Also some of my blue here as well, we're going to make half square triangles with the yellow and white yet again, and the blue, and we're going to go ahead and make those up also. So once that is done, we will then move on to the next stages. So just get all of the half square triangles done, and as usual you would make those by putting them front sides together. I felt the quickest way to move along the speed of the block is to chain piece, and with these sort of things I tend to always chain piece as normal, so which I think will move quickly and get the block done a lot more effectively. So again, to make half square triangles, just to repeat myself, is to draw a line from point to point, and we're going to sew on either side of that line using a 1/4 inch to align it straight, and then we're going to cut in half and make the half square triangles. It's as simple as that. Now do remember that you are making two blocks, so when you are making your cuts, you will then cut for two sets of blocks. The pattern will give you instructions for one block, so just remember to make your fabric cuts for two, which is what I have done, and it's quite self-explanatory. And of course you have the tutorial as we're doing now to remind you of what you need to do. I would say that you just need to be a little bit mindful with this particular block, as it is a little bit tricky. The half square triangles are fine at this particular stage, but there are some that is a little bit more on the trickier side that we need to, and it's a little bit of a small, when I say small squares or small cuts that you need to do. So just be a little bit mindful with that. And someone is contacting me on Etsy, so I'm going to go ahead and finish marking all of these. And again, I'm doing this for your benefit, so that you know exactly what you need to do. Oh wow, someone really needs to contact me. So I'm going to go answer that question, or it's probably a feedback, and I will be back. And when I come back, I will have my half square triangles already completed, and we can move on to the next stage. So again, I'm going to chain piece all of these. All right, so we're going to cut them into the half square triangles now, but I just wanted to show you, you can see how quickly that went by with just all of the chains. So I'm going to separate them now, and then once I've done that, the next stage is to simply cut them into half square triangles and trim them down. But let me say this to you. Now, when I was cutting my squares here, I cut them slightly bigger accidentally. Now, rather than going back and cut them or get rid of those squares and cut them to the same size, what I had to do was trim them down to the size that is required. Now, hopefully you do not make that mistake and you cut yours correctly. Now, once you cut yours correctly, you should not really need to trim them down to size, but I had to trim mine to size. Otherwise, they would not have fit. Okay, but I didn't have to share that with you, but you would probably wonder why I am trimming mine down when you would realize when you made yours that you didn't trim yours down. So I didn't want you to go trimming yours down thinking that was the next graduated step, when in actuality, I actually cut mine slightly bigger accidentally. So when I realized, rather than recut again to the correct size, I just thought I'll trim them down. Okay, so I just thought I'll put that out there. But providing you cut yours correctly, you shouldn't have that problem. So once you cut and trim to size, we can then move on to the next stage. Now, if you notice, when I open, I'm actually putting the white down first so that I can finger press, and then that white actually goes under and it's laid flat, and you don't see that white fold coming through on the clear side of the fabric. So white down first, finger press, so that it goes onto the darker fabric. Okay, that's very important. I mean, it's not, heaven and earth moving or anything, just that it just makes it look better, and you don't see the white side peeping through underneath the half square triangle of the lighter fabric. So light down first, finger press, so that it goes to the dark. As simple as that. That makes life a little bit more easier, and it gives a really higher level of production for your quilt. Now, if like me, you've made a mistake, use the long line in the middle of your ruler to align with the half square triangle joined together there to trim it down to the correct size. That ensures it gets to the correct size squarely. Once you've trimmed sort of L shape, you would turn it and use that L shape that you just trimmed as your measurement to trim off the next end of the block. All right, so now that all of the half square triangles are completed, we're going to move on to the next stage. So we have our large square here, and we have two of our yellow and white, as well as the half of our red squares. This is your center block, so don't cut that. So we're going to stick with the largest square, the red squares, and the yellow and white, which is sort of representing gold and white. Okay, so what we're going to do is take the balance of this and we're going to cut it twice on the diagonal. So you're going to cut it once like that, don't move it, and we're going to cut it from point to point yet again. Okay, so we have that there, and then we're going to cut our red squares just in half. So just make sure they're stacked together properly, and again we're just going to cut that in half. And with our largest square, we are going to cut on the diagonal twice. And then we're going to cut again. So cut once, point to point. I know I said don't move, but it was at an angle. So I'm just making sure that it's centered nicely. And I'm cutting it again. Notice when I moved it with my hands down so that both moved at the same time. So I didn't really have to realign it, okay? And then what we're going to do once we've done that is to cut it again in half. And if you want, just to make sure that it's cut correctly, you can use your long line in the middle of your, line it up to the edge of your triangle and cut it in half like so, and you will do the same for the balance of them. Okay, so what I'm going to do is to show you now how to make the second block or square in this manner. Alright, so I'll leave that for now. I can do the rest off camera. So all you need to do basically is to take this one and this one like so, and we're going to line it up like so. Ooh. That is it basically. Alright, so you're going to have, so what I'm going to do is lay this out, because I think it's important to lay the block out rather than showing it to you like this, because it's important that the yellow is aligned correctly within the layout of the block. So let's do that now, so that way you get it right rather than me show you just how to make this. It's important that it's laid out properly. So I'm going to put these on the side. I'm going to lay down my center block first. And I'm going to bring in all of my half square triangles. What I'm going to do is give these a little bit of a press so they lay flat, and I'll be back. Alright, so to lay it all out, now that I have all of these ironed and pressed nicely, we're going to start with our center block, and we're also going to start with our squares here. So we're going to lay these down like so. We want the reds coming together, and we're going to add our square, which we're going to use again. These are our background squares, but again I'm using the yellow and white just to show that contrast, and I'm going to do that on this side here as well, like so. Half square triangles. Remember, the red goes inwards, that's important. And then we need this to go on top like so. Oops. And we're going to do the same. So we're going to have the blue on this side like so. That's upside down. So I would advise you to just make sure and check, because this one is a little bit tricky. It will really play with the eyes, so it's important that you just check it, just so that you don't get it mixed up, because it does it does play with the eyes a little bit. So just like that. Again, we're really working in 4 patches basically. That's what we're doing. 4 patches we're making. I think if you remember it like that, it becomes a lot more simplified. So notice I start with my background squares here, and I actually put them in first, and again I center the 2 reds together, and then I come in with my blue and yellow, and my blue needs to make, that's upside down, so it's this way. I have 2 separate blues here because I ran out, so remember with your blues you need to get that sort of triangle there. Yeah, that's important. Otherwise you will have to unpick it. It will make a completely different pattern if you do it the other way, which I have found, and I will show you as well. Yeah, it will make a completely different pattern, so just remember that. Okay, so that is that there. Let me just bring this in a little bit closer so it's a bit more together, so you can clearly see your 4 patches. Alright, so going back to this particular one now, what's important is that we need to have the yellow touching the blue. So the yellow goes towards the blue like so, and this is why I wanted to make sure and show you how it's formulated first, rather than show you how to make that little square. And then we had the red right here, and then we have the blue, which we cut into smaller triangles like so. Alright, so that is it basically. So let me just make one on the side so you can actually see it. Okay, so it's a half square triangle red like so, and then you have your yellow at the top, and then you have your blue like so. Okay, so yellow is at the top. Very important to remember that. So I'm going to go ahead and make those. So for like example, it's important to have the red there, and it's important to have the blue there, because you want a little diamond of the blue in the middle and the triangles at the top. Now once you've made these blocks here, you will need to trim them down to the required size. Now I think I mentioned this in the previous video, but I'll say this again. If ever you're making a block and you're not sure what size you should trim it down to, look at what the size is for just the squares. As long as you know the size of the squares, then you know the size of what size you need to trim it down to. It is as simple as that. So you're going to trim it down to this size. As simple as that, all right? As long as you make everybody, because if the pattern tells you, irregardless of what pattern it is, if it tells you to trim to a size for just a square, that you do not have to make any trimmings to, or half square triangles to, or quarter square triangles to, and it's just a square, this is the size every block should be. That is the secret of putting these things together. So don't ever confuse yourself about it. All right, so what I'm going to do now is go ahead and make the block. And what I would do is simply just sew these together first. All right, so I'm going to line it up there again and just show you there. So I will sew these two together first, and then I will add it to the red and then trim it down. So you need to make 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's what those blank spaces are. And then I will show you how to sew the block together. So here is the layout. What I would say is be very careful getting all of these here, these quarter squares, triangles. Just be careful with those, they're a little bit tricky. But other than that, everything looks really beautiful. Make sure that you lay out, it's not stitched together, they're all just placed in its rightful place. I would say this one is a bit of a tricky one to sew together. So I have my sewing machine right next to me. So I can pick it up and sew. So remember, you are making 4 patches anyway, aren't you? So it's your 4 patch, 4 patch, 4 patch, 4 patch, 4 patch, 4 patch, 4 patch. And of course your center square. And you will sew it together as a 9 patch, which again makes it easier. Alright, so I'm going to sew this together. Remember, you are making 2 of these, and then I will show you what it looks like. Alright, so here is a completed block. This block measures 15.5 at this stage, which is the unfinished. Finished, it is 15 inches squared. This Christmas star is very beautiful. I hope you can see the variation of that yellow and white that really stands out, looks absolutely gorgeous and very, very beautiful and on point for this time of year. Do remember, you are making 2 of this if you are taking part in the Christmas sew along. For those of you who are not, the pattern will be in the description box down below if you'd like to make this beautiful star as a table runner or a quilt. Imagine the variation of this as a whole pattern quilt. How beautiful this would look. Such a gorgeous star, and I think it will look beautiful for any Christmas table runner as a center focal point. You can make 4 and it'll look beautiful. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, hit that notification bell, leave me a message down below, let me know what you think of the star. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys, happy quilting.